It's showtime. What's up and welcome back. I'm John Stark from MacTheMovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic. And in case you didn't guess, this is a review of Beetlejuice. I can't say it. I have to watch how many times I say that name in this review. I don't want to bring him in. I gotta be very careful. Is there like a time limit between how many times? Like, does it erase? What are the rules? Like, how many times before I can say it again? Anyway, I watched this with audio description. I watched it before. I'm wearing, actually, for my blind audience, because I'm a blind film critic. I know I have a blind audience. I talk about audio description. I did watch it with audio description, and I'm wearing a Beetlejuice t-shirt. So, which you can't see, but the side of people who stumble in here and they're like, blind people watch movies? Yeah, we do. I used to be able to see, and I can't anymore, and I didn't want to just stop doing the thing that I loved, so I'm just going to keep doing it. I'm just going to have to talk about the accessibility that was offered to the community, because, you know, stuff. What's really interesting is the audio description is not on Max, which you would think it would be. It's like, they did the same fucking thing with Twister. Like, I did a review of Twister where I was like, but for that I couldn't find anywhere audio description for Twister. I don't think it's ever been recorded. So I just let that review come out as being, but because I could find Beetlejuice with audio description, I just watched it not on Max. So this is Tim Burton's film. It's got, I don't even know, like, the casting and the weird sort of like lineup of like, who is the lead of this film is listed a couple times. So I think technically Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis are the leads of this film. And then after that you have, maybe Winona Ryder is in third. Followed by probably Jeffrey Jones, Catherine O'Hara in fourth, almost tied for screen time, and then Michael Keaton in fifth as Beetlejuice. Oh my God, I did it again. I can't do it a third time, or maybe I can. Maybe that was enough time. It's kind of that's basically the main cast, and. So we open up in the film, and it's this nice house. I've seen this film before, by the way, so it's also a second look. I should mention that I've seen Beetlejuice before. It's not my first time. There were little things that I noticed along the way, which is like Deo is playing sort of like throughout the movie, like kind of quietly in the background, almost like suggesting like what's to come. It's like they got the rights to one song, so they're like, we're gonna fucking use that song. We're gonna play Deo all the time. Like almost like if like you pay for the rights, you can use it as much as you want throughout the course of the movie. So Tim Burton was like, well, we paid for it, so you can quietly hear it in other scenes before they actually have the big Deo scene. So they're this couple, Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis, and they die. They own this house. They have this, I guess she ends up being a relative of theirs. And she pictures herself. She's like, I decorated the inside. And I don't understand this. Like, she's somehow, I think she's related to them or something. And it's very weird. This film is actually not as good as everybody thinks it is. We just accept it because it's bonkers and it's fun. It's a very fun movie. This is a very popcorn-oriented movie. This is not a movie where you would go back and we'd be like rewriting the Oscars for Best Picture Beetlejuice. Because when you really break it down, you're like, I don't know. So she shows up at the house and she's like, you guys should sell your house because this house is really meant for a family. It's too big for you. Who says that, first of all? Like, and obviously, like, Gina Davis is really sort of like sad that she doesn't have a kid. So, which the film doesn't really explore too much. Like, we don't know why she doesn't have a kid. She's just sad. She's just like, I think the audio description was like, she like looks down. She's like, so, there's something there. There's some reason. Like, they've been trying. It just hasn't happened for them. Which is good because they die. So they would have just orphaned some child. So in the timeline of this movie, great. You don't have a kid. But also, maybe if they did have a baby, they, like, his thing of like, oh, I'm going to go take a trip to the store. Why don't you come with me? Would have been like, oh, I'm going to take a trip to the store, but I don't want to bring the baby with me. So I'm just going to let you stay here because somebody needs to stay with the baby. There's no reason to bring the baby to a hardware store, like to a run on the hardware store. So, I'm not saying that their job is, I'm just saying he's the one that brings up the fact that he needs to go to the hardware store. So maybe he wouldn't have, because he'd be like, well, then we have to get the car seat. We have to put the car seat in the baby. So, choices. There's a dog on the road and they swerve and they go off the end and then they find themselves in another world and then they get the handbook. It's like their house, but it's like time has passed and it's the rule book on the recently deceased handbook. So they're ghosts now in their house. They're pretty much confined to their house. Like, when there's a scene later when they try to step outside and they fall into like Dune, I think. I think they fall into Dune. There's like a sandworm or something. So everything comes back to Dune nowadays. The family that moves in is this, with Jeffrey Jones as the dad, Catherine O'Hara is his wife, and Winona Ryder is the daughter, and Catherine O'Hara is the stepmom, which is, see, the thing that I always thought, it's weird. Like, I've already done and put out my 35th anniversary of Field of Dreams. And I talk about how Field of Dreams, the most misquoted thing is, if you build it, they will come. It's, if you build it, he will come. So one of the things is, I remembered from Beetlejuice that her mom was dead. And I watched this and the sequel basically like within the same time, and I'm reviewing them at the same time with the same shirt. So now basically this is like because of knowledge of the sequel. So there's a line that she has in the sequel where she's like, where her and Catherine O'Hara are complaining or like arguing, and she's like, well, you never really liked me since your mother died. And she's like, she's not dead. And I was like, what? I was like, I was like, wait, isn't she dead? And then I'm thinking about, I was like, well, I just saw the first movie. Did they mention it? And I don't know if she does. But yet the funny thing is, I think everyone thinks that her mom has been, I swear, in like the animated cartoon and everything that they had after this, and also like the stage musical, she's definitely dead. I mean, there's the whole song Dead Mom. Like, she's definitely, I think the suggestion is that one of the reasons why she can see dead people perhaps is because of her experience with death, is the fact that her mom is dead. So is one of the reasons why she can see ghosts. And I was kind of like floored realizing, like, I don't think they actually mention it, but then they never really talk about where she is anyway. Like, she could be anywhere. I don't think Jeffrey Jones ever mentions it at all in this film. Charles. So weird. The things is, I think it may be one of those, like, if you build it, they will come things, where like we've all just put this on Lydia's character, and maybe it's not a thing, to the point where they even put it in the musical, and they were like, oh yeah, everybody thinks that, so why not? Let's do it. Dead mom, dead mom. But basically, they, you know, Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis, they want to get everybody out of their house. They explore the possibility of using Beetlejuice, who seems like a wild and crazy character. He's just, everything he's doing is just silly. The rating on this, so I hope, is PG-13. I was like, is this movie PG? Because it definitely seems like gateway horror for like young people, but not necessarily like too young. I wouldn't show this to like an 8-year-old. I feel like there's some stuff here that's a little heavy. The hanging thing, you know, I mean, there are a couple things here that's like, the decapitation. There are a couple times where their scare is a little bit like, I don't know, for like little kids. I don't know if Beetlejuice is. It's funny because there's like a cartoon of Beetlejuice, so it's like, well, who is this for? But then again, we also had like cartoons of like Rambo, and you're like, who is this for? And I remember having action figures as a kid from like Aliens, and like, well, that's an R-rated movie. So again, who is this for? You know, you have like Terminator action figures for kids, and you're like, these are R-rated movies. Why are you making action figures from R-rated movies for kids? If you're like, well, these movies are not for kids, but they so are. We would really love them to be. It's a fun movie, and I love the Deo sequence, and how that works out, and Catherine O'Hara's commitment to that. It's so funny to watch her this far back in her career and think of how underrated of an actress she was for like most of her career, and then suddenly she does Schitt's Creek and everybody's like, oh my god, Catherine O'Hara, and it's like, she's kind of been excellent her whole life. Jeffrey Jones he's perfectly obnoxious here. He's one of those actors where we can't talk about him anymore. Although they did bring him back for the Deadwood movie. I don't know that he's done anything else since his conviction. I don't think, since he got out of jail, I don't think he got anything else. So, if you're like, why isn't Jeffrey Jones? What's up with him? He's not dead. Google him. I don't like to put that kind of stuff in my reviews. I don't like to try to like debate the drama of these people. I would say Google him. Are we right to maybe not hire Jeffrey Jones? Sure. I absolutely see merit in that. Sometimes I push back on it. Sometimes I think there's, for example, I think with Shia LaBeouf, I think there's a greater conversation that we should be having about what we do with child stars, and how for years we used him as a punching bag and a laugh joke, and then all of a sudden we expect to take him seriously. You know, he does something terrible and we're like, oh my god, now we must hold him accountable for his actions. And it's like, oh, because you can't make fun of him anymore. Is that why? Because like everybody loved making fun of him for years. And apparently he was dealing with a lot of sort of like traumatic child star stuff, like when he was a kid, which he talks about in Honey Boy. Anyway, so there's like a whole thing there where I think there's a different conversation we should be having. Not necessarily I don't feel comfortable working with Shia conversation, but at the same time, not necessarily let's throw him off the boat, which is how I could feel. I if people were like, Jeffrey Jones, I'd be like, okay, valid, do it. I'm not going to fight for him anymore. So he's in the film though. I'm not going to, like, nobody's going to stop watching Beetlejuice because he's in this film. Just like I'm sure people watch Ferris Bueller's Day Off. He's still in the film. Like, we can't escape. I love Stay Tuned. He is the villain of that film. The thing about him is that he usually plays a bad guy or a guy you're not supposed to like. So it's really easy to keep watching these things because he's never the good guy. So he's not somebody who plays a hero. We're like, oh my god, yes, great, thank you. I love this character. So I don't know. I think Beetlejuice holds up. It's weird because Beetlejuice isn't in that much of the film. But he does pop up in and out. He has these little like moments where he has a gag, but it's weird because like the film is named Beetlejuice when feels like it should be named something else. But he is such like an iconic character that it almost feels like, well, of course. And at least they went ahead and called it Beetlejuice, because it kind of feels like otherwise it's like Cars. I'll equate it to Cars. So what I'm trying to say here is with Cars. So you watch Cars, and everybody was like, "Oh my God, Larry the Cable Guy as Mater is hilarious." So then Cars 2 became Mater. So it wasn't good because you took like a side character and you try to make him the lead, but it was never his film. He was just a great side character. So the weird thing about Beetlejuice is it's called Beetlejuice, but he's always the side character. If there's always a plot that's happening around him, and it's never like his story. Like we're never like just watching only Beetlejuice do a thing. He's not like Indiana Jones, you know, for the dead. I think Winona Ryder does a great job as Lydia. It's an iconic role for her. And I really love Gina Davis and Alec Baldwin. I honestly wish they had been in the sequel because the film just doesn't really mention what happens to them. It just kind of, it's like, well, they're not here. All right. Cool. I guess they passed on. They got their unfinished business. I don't know. So yeah. I'm gonna check out my review of Beetlejuice, which is coming. This is a fun classic. It's Tim Burton really gets to sort of like, he's exploring his style also. This is still early Tim Burton, so we're getting to see him really sort of breaking into what kind of style he's going to have as a director. So this is really like the best Tim Burton days. The later stuff of Tim Burton's career has not really been that great. So this at least gives him a potential to return to form. So those are my thoughts on Beetlejuice. Without, I don't know, beating it to a dead horse and going all the way through the plot with every single spoiler to the end of time. But yeah, it's fun. Definitely check out Beetlejuice the musical if you never have. It's hilarious. It's not everything needs to be adapted into a musical. Beetlejuice absolutely works as a musical, and some of the songs are it understands what made Beetlejuice work. And even though Beetlejuice in the musical is featured far more in the musical than he is in the movie, it works. I like the way that they use him. So, I'll give Beetlejuice an A. I think it's an A film for me. I love it, but I see problems with it. And so this is one of those weird things where it's like nostalgically, I was already a fan. I have a fucking t-shirt with Beetlejuice on it. So, which I bought before seeing Beetlejuice. So it was really sort of a bold move because it's like, well, that could have been bad. And then everybody could have been like, well, we don't talk about him anymore. You know, but it's like, I still like the original. I still like the classic. It's still a classic film. So, and I really loved the cartoon growing up as a kid too. Like that was on, I don't know, one of the Saturday morning networks. So Beetlejuice has always been something in my life that I've always enjoyed. But yeah, it's not a perfect film. There's little quirks and things along the way where you're like, really? And they don't go back and explain it. And again, I wouldn't necessarily show this to a kid, but yet there's this feeling that it is like for families or for kids, but I don't know that it is for like little ones. I would start at maybe 10 and work your way up from there. So, anyway, just some thoughts. So thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And I will see you guys on the other side. Literally like Beetlejuice. When you cross over, I'll be there. Say my name 3 times. So...